Welcome to episode 221 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And as far as I know, I'm not one of the rotten, but sometimes I look in the mirror and wonder.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of the podcast that you're listening to. And I've met some people that made me question whether or not they were rotten. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to elaborate anymore.
Creepy.
James has met them.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So joining us today, we have two guests. I'm super excited. S.A. Bradley's here, who tipped me off to this movie. And he said, it's about possession, and I cut him off. And I was like, I fucking hate possession films. I'm not watching this shit. I've never liked a single possession film. And Scott, now it's my favorite film of the year. So holy shits. And then Alok Mishra is here as well. Why don't you both introduce yourselves to our audience a little bit and tell them about yourselves, and then we'll come back to the movie here in a minute. Scott, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm S.A. Bradley, and I am a podcaster. I'm a lecturer, and I'm an author. My podcast is Hellbent for Horror, and I talk about all things horror and how horror affects our culture and how culture affects the horror that we get to see. My book is called Screaming for Pleasure, How Horror Makes You Happy and Healthy, and it's a nice little traipse through horror and talks about how it is helps you get through some of the traumas in your life, as well as being a lot of fun.
Excellent. And Alok.
Well, I'm Alok Mishra. I'm a film producer slash douchebag, whatever you want to say. Not rotten, maybe kind of a douchebag. I produced a film called 1BR. It had some success. It was number one on Netflix, and we're making a sequel to it. So that's what I've been up to, actually. But in addition to that, I used to do market research for film. I used to test movies for 18 years. So I have a little bit of a weird background, a different skill set than certain producers, I guess, because I understand how things can be really horribly damaged and fixed. So that's me.
Excellent. All right. So I normally go with, why did you pick this film? And Scott, you're the one who told me I had to watch it or you would cut my toenails off. So what is it about this film that you love so much?
Well, I think the first thing about it was that it was a Damien Rugna film, and I had stumbled upon Damien's work during the pandemic, and he had a movie called Terrified, not Terrifier, but Terrified. And there are certain things that are in that first film that are in this one as well. He has created a small little universe. But I was chomping at the bit because that was one of my favorite movies of that year. And I was going, wow, this guy really understands horror. He understands that it's about the element of surprise. And so when this came out, I ended up going to a movie theater, and I was the only non-Spanish speaking person there. I had to go to like the edge of town to be able to find it. And it was a really interesting thing to watch their responses to things that may or may not have meant a lot to me. But it was really intriguing to see, why I think this movie is so interesting is that this is The Exorcist we didn't get. This is The Exorcist we should have gotten. This is The Exorcist for a secular world. And I think that it's really clever. And when I saw it, I was going, I can't wait to tell my friends. And I found out they all drove that same night to small areas of their town to be able to find it, because it had a very soft open, to say the least. And, from then on, its legend has been growing rather quickly through the ranks of horror fans.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Alok?
I've been looking forward to this movie. I loved Terrified. The movie scared the shit out of me in the daytime. That's saying something, right? And so this was all over my radar, and I was looking for it. And then come to find, it was playing right next to my house, actually, in sunny Southern California, in Sherman Oaks, but only 2 show times. I'll say that. It was difficult to get to, right, in that regard. But I made the time, and I figured out, I have a kid and shit, so I had to figure out a clever way to go see this, and I did. And then I was just, and here's the thing too, I didn't watch the trailer, I didn't watch shit, because I wanted to just go in completely cold, visuals, whatever. And I really do honestly think it's the best way to go with this film. The trailer's a good trailer, but it does give a lot of visuals away, because I did watch the trailer afterwards. I'm always fascinated with any sort of marketing. But I would say if you want to watch this movie right, just don't see anything. Go in cold, go as little as you can know. You're going to kind of discover the universe as you go, and it's a little hard because it's in a different language. But I promise you this: you will get it. It's slow. It's kind of establishing a world. I think you're going to like it even more the second time when you don't have some of those confusions of figuring out the world. I'll say that. But this movie did not disappoint. It is brutal as fuck. It is my favorite horror movie of the year thus far. I don't think anything else is coming out the rest of the year that's going to be better, frankly. But I ended up seeing it twice in the theater. And here's how I knew it was doing better, at least my theater, is by Sunday for the next week, they had added on like a whole day showtimes for it. Right. So I knew, okay, I was like, all right, I'm going to go see this again purposely because I want to understand it more. I want to study it. But I also want to support it. So maybe they'll hold it over another week, which they did, actually. So they got almost 2 solid weeks in the theater before I think it then came on Shudder. And I think, to be fair, I think they were pretty dumb putting it on Shudder right away, because I think they could have I think the movie made like $700 something thousand worldwide. I think they easily could have gotten to 2 million at least if they really had kept it in theaters a bit longer, because the word of mouth on it would have been there. People I'm telling you, like just us right here in this room right here, right? All the fucking horror, all of us are just like, holy shit, what did we just watch here? It is my favorite movie of the year. I don't know what's going to beat it. I don't think there's anything that can beat it. But I tell you this, your Shudder subscription, this is why you have Shudder. If you don't have Shudder, then fucking get the free subscription. Like you can get it for a week. All right. And just like, and I can give you 10 movies to watch in that week. And then if you're just going to want to keep Shudder, probably.
Well, even Twitter was just blowing up with this, and Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days, X, whatever. Twitter is constantly at war over movies. Like when Malignant came out, it was like destroying the horror community because everyone was taking cheap shots at each other over it. And every fucking person talking about this movie was hyping it up to the level that I was like, I don't know how it's going to live up to this. And then holy fuck. Yeah. Yes, Scott,
this is reminiscent. This is reminiscent of how I felt when I saw the original Nightmare on Elm Street in '84. That movie was not a big rollout. That was a very low budget movie, a very small role, and it blew up within a couple weeks. But I went in the theater. There were like 12 people there. And by the end of that movie, we're all standing up going, what the fuck did we just see? And everybody went to wherever they were and brought 2 friends the next day. And so I went in and I saw the same dozen people, but there were another scattering. And by the end of the week, I've seen it like 4 times in the first week or so, because I was going, wow, this is such a breath of fresh air. And I think that very true. This could have been one of those. I mean, it had to get over the language barrier, but in all honesty, that barrier is kind of shattered after us living through the pandemic. So many people got used to subtitles. The very idea that Squid Game became a huge hit. People are not so intimidated as they used to be. So I think they really could have done bigger business with it. And I haven't been this thrilled with a movie that feels like a secret, right? That's when it's fun, right? And there's one thing of having everybody waiting for a movie and then it's really good, but then there's the one that you find, like that album that you had when you were a kid, and you're like, oh, come on, guys, you haven't heard this? And you jazzed every time somebody gets into it. And I think this movie's perfectly that.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, like, I feel like, yeah, you're right. The secret thing is definitely a thing. I feel like this is this year's Dark and the Wicked for me. Like, I really love that movie. It was a small movie, great one. And I was just like, look, you got to see this fucking movie. It's hits. You'll love it. Da, da, da. Anyway, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna. Don, did you watch it in the theater or on Shudder, or how did you watch it?
I watched it on Shudder. Me too. As soon as it showed up on Shudder, I put it on my list, and I think my wife was working like straight through, so she couldn't. There was no time for us to watch anything together. So when the request was put in for this film, I'm like, oh, finally, I get to go back and watch it. And I do what I always do, which is what Alok said you should be doing, James. What you should be doing,
never,
James. which is
Never.
go into the movie with as little information as possible.
Spoilers for
Because
everything.
something like this should not be spoiled. Because what I told James, either when we were recording one of the other days or just through text messages, my compliment to a movie is if you can shock me. You can shock me without being overly gory. You can shock me without relying on like the 1, 2, 3 jump scare. There were parts of this movie where I was like, holy fuck, that was awesome. Oh my God. I think I even texted you. I was like, my jaw was immediately on the floor because of several scenes, because I loved them so much as far as the way they were done. The pacing that they hit was not the typical conventional pacing to get you to freak out to something, but also you get a very good quality foreign language, and I hate saying that. You get a very good quality non-English horror film, which also means that you're not going to have the typical American storytelling that goes along with this. And what I've seen a lot from especially South American films, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Whatever rules you have in America when it comes to American horror, we don't care. Fuck the kids. We're going to kill the dog. We're going to do all these things because, and if this were real, if this thing were real, it's not going to play by those rules. So I think when especially when James talks about his displeasure with possession movies, so many of those American and I would even say British possession movies stay on that same path. They're telling the same story, just a different way with different characters, to where it just feels very redundant as far as what they're doing. Whereas this one, I didn't know what was going to happen next, except for one thing where I predicted it, and I was very happy that Jair finally got his ice cream.
Right.
Manzana. I said, obviously we'll always have critic friends, but Mike Gingold from Rue Morgue, he showed a picture of what they had sent him for like the critics and this and that, and it was like I think a screener or a code or whatever, and then 2 pints of that manzana apple ice cream.
That is awesome.
Disgusting. Who do we eat that? It's like I kind of want to try it, frankly, but like it's just kind of anyway. Yeah.
I'm just kind of laughing because we're like going, you got to go into this movie, little information, no spoilers, and we're going to spend 20 minutes somehow doing. I think
you got to put something on the front of this, and we're going to talk spoilers right away.
Well,
so you should
anybody
watch the movie first, come back.
They saw the movie.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, if they didn't, they should just stop it right here.
Yeah,
go see the movie,
go
come back, because this is not worth spoiling for you.
I have to say this, James, before I forget about it.
Yeah,
I do plan on having my mom watch this movie.
Oh man, please fucking record the hell out of that.
I'm gonna try to get some reaction from her because I know the first thing she's gonna say is like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Mom."
No, I have this buddy, Ian, and Ian listens to this podcast all the time. He doesn't care if we spoil it if he hasn't seen it. But occasionally, like this movie, I think I've done this twice in the, 250 episodes we've done. I wrote him and I was like, you have to watch this before we fucking talk about it because I will feel horrible if you do not go into this blind. He watched it that night. I got this text that says, hey, we're starting it. 20, 28, 30 minutes later, I get, holy fucking shit. And I'm like, I know exactly what just happened.
Yep. Well, I can tell you, I want to rewatch it today. It's minute 27, actually, because I like to see the pacing of things. Right when that shit happens, shit hits the fan. And I even counted how many times that woman hit herself in the face with the axe. 5 times. 5 times she hits her in the face with the axe.
Well, the thing that gets me and why I think there's just such an amazing style to this film is it's the last hit that really gets me.
Yeah.
Which is that she's no longer there, right? She is no longer the one operating this. She's not operating the equipment. So you have this whole thing where she's dead and it's rising up and it just can't make it. And then she falls over to the side.
Yeah, it's just almost hits. I was like, is it going to be 6? No, it's not going to be 6.
It's just an astonishing moment.
Well, the other thing, not besides the whole, like, lots of kid death, right? like even like you talk about the physics of it, right? When that little kid is hammering that woman's head in with a hammer, it's a little kid doing it. It's just not a possessed person. It is somebody who is like possessed in a way, but the physics are the same. Like it's a little kid trying to like kill this woman slowly, brutally, just like, and it makes it even more painful in that regard to see this happening. Like it just there's so many little good things that he puts in the movie, and like, look, I was trying to figure out the budget of this movie. That's where my head goes, right? And I saw some places printed and said like 5 million, and I was like, was it 5 million though? I didn't think it was quite even 5 million, really, right? But I think it's more like 1.5 million, frankly, 2 million maybe at most. But I was like, for as small a budget as this probably was, it is so effective. Like, I mean, it's so well thought out. Every time that something happens, whether it like be a dog running away with this girl's body, or or the truck coming and smashing into the wife, or all this shit is just so well planned out and just so brutal. Like chef's kiss, like almost every scene that you see. Like I'm sorry, I keep on wanting to spoil everything. I guess I keep on just talking out of my ass about all the different seasons that. Yeah. But there are just so many, and the movie's a tight movie. Like look, it's a foreign language film. Some people have a hard time with that, but I think that just watching it today, I was just looking at the characters, like without even looking at the words sometimes, and you just see everything that's going on in that Pedro guy's face, right? Like, I mean, this demon is after him, but he also has like his own demons that he's trying to contend with, which is so interesting, and you can just see that in his face, language aside. I don't know. I just every scene, every horror scene was amazing, and even beyond the horror scene, you knew what these characters' story was, which I thought was just so well done.
Yeah, because even with language, this is a movie that you can do it with no understanding, no captions. You can follow along as far as what is taking place. You get an understanding just from the facial expressions, from the actions that people are taking, to where I think even without the audio, or I should say without understanding Spanish, especially Argentinian Spanish, but without understanding Spanish or even having those captions there, what you could end up having is even a more frightful, more terrifying movie, because these individuals don't know some people don't know what's taking place, what's going on. But as a viewer, as an audience member, if you're there with no understanding of the language and what is taking place, it becomes even scarier, because you might be looking for certain phrases or certain dialogue that's gonna clue you into what is gonna happen next, to where you might not know. You honestly are gonna sit there and try and figure out what is taking place, and it's gonna build the suspense.
Well, I think from the very beginning, there's just a smart economy of shots, and it's just very cleverly put together. The first shot is out a window, right? We hear 3 gunshots, and then we hear more, and then we pull back to see 2 guys looking out the window, right? So you're already paying attention in a way that you're not usually paying attention in a movie. And so they're essentially doing very naturalistic dialogue of, do you think it's a poacher? So you're getting all this little information. And it kind of blew me away when they first go to the house that's holding the shack, that's holding our rotten. And there's this whole thing of some of the people seem to know that this is actually a thing. I mean, we later find out there's nursery rhymes and songs written about this thing, but you're already slowly collecting from the very beginning. You're collecting details. And so every shot seems to have this great detail. The idea that you first don't see the poacher, the quote unquote poacher. Then when you do, they're cut in half, right? We see one half of them. And then we see the equipment that's laying on the ground, which looks a lot like the equipment that this woman used in Terrified. She had the same kind of equipment that she was using to ghost hunt. And little by little, you're brought into a world where it's like, keep up. And there's something about keep up that is very good in a movie like this. It keeps you alive and moving with the thing. And so you're trying to keep up with the story. It's really easy for a surprise to really derail you. And I think that happens a couple times in the movie where you're like I saw that coming. I forgot that was going to happen because something else happened. Then boom, they hit you with that second beat. So really cool.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that Scott and I were talking about before all this was just how they managed to hit the fear of the pandemic without jamming it down your fucking throat.
Yeah.
You have the whole, well, it took out cities, but we're out here, it shouldn't be happening. And I heard that so much from my family in Nebraska, out on farmland. Well, we're fine. We don't interact with anybody anyway during the pandemic. And it really hit me how that fear must have hit with that kind of stuff when somebody who never leaves their farm still fucking got it, or who you interact with once in a while at this one place, And I thought that this did such a good job. There's so many fucking pandemic stories now that I can't take them seriously because it's too much. And stuff like this where it taps it but doesn't overly exploit it is just great to me.
Yeah. Well, it exploits a mindset, right? And it works very well with the idea of possession. Because you mentioned you hate possession movies, and I used to be a huge champion of those kind of films. But I always said that they're great until the last reel. The first 2 or 3 reels are fantastic because it's all about prey.
Yeah. Being
prey to something that no one understands. They won't listen to you. But once they find out what it is, it's like a doctor prescription. Oh, you got possession. You got a devil. We'll get 2 priests to come and call you in the morning. And every movie shrinks from whatever the whole unknown is to the size of a bed or someone tied to a chair. They're always tied to fucking something. And it's the same story. And so this is so great because it like plays into the idea that we've watched a million possession movies, right? We expect it to be a certain thing. And the problem is that doesn't really work anymore. The Exorcist was great for its time. It's still a scary movie, but it does not have that visceral impact. I've been talking about that for years. Do young kids who have grown up where the church isn't right on your throat the whole time, does this movie scare you anymore? Does it really have the fear of God in it? And this one is interesting because there's no religion in it, but in some ways that makes it scarier. Like, oh, we've gotten rid of religion and now this fucking thing is running through here. The idea that there are moments in this movie where people show actual fear, like the mother towards the end where someone's up in the room with the kid and she comes downstairs. Instead of trying to help the kid or anything like that, she runs down, which is very real to me. She's like, I'm so scared. She's telling her son, I'm so scared. Something is up there. And it's the idea, what would you do in a secular world where all of a sudden something that doesn't give a fuck about physics, doesn't care about anything, could eat a little kid can eat an entire person? That's the kind of evil that you're dealing with. And you're there in front of it. That idea of being eye to eye with something truly doesn't care and it relishes in your pain. How frightening that would be. And I think that's why this, to me, is the movie that all the Exorcist movies have been trying to be. It's hitting at the right time. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It brings a visceral fear to something that we may, not. And the idea of everybody forgetting, right? Oh, there's there's like 7 things. Oh, I can't remember the last one. And you're like sitting there going, what the, it's so smart in that way of we forget the old ways. And now we're really in danger. Great. We understand the church isn't anything. At one point, they say something like, the churches are dead, madame. Right. Then what? What if evil could give a fuck? And it's never been associated with the church. It never had anything to do with the church. It's just there. Now, what are you going to do? And I think there's really something amazing about that in this movie.
Well, and that's what I don't like. Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, that's what I don't like about possession films is they always feel like superhero church movies. And that's why I don't enjoy them. So go ahead, Don.
Oh, no, because when both of you just mentioned religion, I looked up the tagline. The tagline for the movie is there's no point in praying.
Yeah.
Like how powerful that is, because normally we look at a line like that. Oh, it's fucking cheesy. Like that's ridiculous, But after you watch the movie, you see that, go back and watch the movie again. It makes so much sense, especially with what you're pushing, is that idea that it probably exists and has no connection to any of that stuff. So what's the point of holy water? What's the point of calling it a priest? They even say like you have to bring in a specialist to take care of a rotten. They didn't say like, oh, you have to call the church. It's like, no, there are people that specialize in this to do it and to kill them correctly. And especially with that link with, a contagion or a pandemic type allegory, the idea that, maybe you should listen to the experts. Maybe you should listen to the advice of experts and actual research and not, a Google search.
Well, there was another aspect to it that I thought was interesting. That's sort of classism. Like these poor people having to deal with this shit, and the government doesn't give a shit, won't help them. And these guys are like, "Come on!" And then that's one interesting thing. And the other thing is that it almost becomes like a road trip, right? Yeah. Like it's like fucked up road trip, and they're trying to escape. And it's something I didn't totally expect, but I was like, "All right, let's see where this goes," Yeah, so I thought those are two interesting angles to it.
Yeah, that's actually very good. That's something that I thought too. The idea of class and the idea that nobody really believes this. Like they could wait a year. That the system is falling down, which is what Blatty was going at and what Ira Levin and Polanski were doing. With Rosemary's Baby, it's like all your systems are falling apart. We're just here in a godless world, and there's nothing but a void. And this movie kind of hits on that in a way. And it's funny. Just mentioned Polanski. Third time watching this movie, I went, holy shit, this is kind of like Fearless Vampire Killers, but not funny, because it's the same thing. Unwise people who think they're going to take care of the problem. The problem may have stayed in one place, but instead they bring it down off the mountain. So these guys do everything that they're not supposed to do. They explicitly are told what they're not supposed to do. Don't turn on lights. Don't move the fucking thing. Don't use a gun. And every one of them does those things. And that one, it felt very pandemic-y in that way too. Like, don't tell me what to do. I see what the problem is. But there's this idea as well that by trying to do it and you don't have the skills, you just make it even that much worse. And there's just cool thing. But the class thing, I felt that as well, with the idea of that it would be poverty that would be ignored. And I love when they're like looking at the city where the city's supposed to be and all the lights are up and they're going, oh, they're following the protocol. And I'm like, there's a protocol for this? Holy shit. What is happening in this movie?
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm like, they're all dead. They're not following shit. Maybe that's because I lived in Phoenix during the pandemic and I saw that people can't follow shit. No, the class thing was just a big thing to me the whole time. The fact that it's constantly rented land and it's constantly I don't believe that landlord is in a great financial situation. He's in a good financial situation compared to everyone else around him, but he's not upper class by any means, so the class thing I thought was interesting, how it's always there. Like you might be the top of the bottom, but that's still where we are. And I kind of liked that we never really got to, how did the rich survive this? Did they go full purge and lower their cool shields on the windows? But I liked that we never went there. We stayed in the world that we're in and at the level that we're at. I thought that was a really good addition.
Yeah, you never know what's actually real. You can look at that almost like 10 Cloverfield Lane or that great Twilight Zone where the one across this, incident on 2nd Avenue or whatever it was, where nothing really happens, but everybody's paranoia takes it to this next level. And there's a moment where you might be able to say that in this movie, and then it just goes absolutely crazy. I love that you have characters who are unreliable witnesses to whatever's happening. I don't know what Pedro's done. Is he I'm assuming he's an alcoholic or something like that. He's lost his family. What does he do? He goes to them to try and get them out of there, and he invades their lives. And you can see how horrified they are. And everybody that he meets is thinking logically, and it's still not going to help them either. He goes to the mother, and the mother's like, so I can't believe that she's allowed you to have the kids right now. This is great. Right. She's like, but she does know, right? Whose truck is this? All of that stuff's happening, and you could maybe see, that it would be very hard to believe this guy. So when the police are there and they're saying, listen, I can put you away right now if I want. In fact, they're ready to like knock him out when he grabs the chief and he puts him up against the wall. And the chief's like, no, you know how what he's like. That's what that hand raising up is like. Don't shoot him. I have pity for this guy. And the idea that he had pity for him was an interesting deal. How bad is this guy? This is our hero. Fuck, we're dead.
Right.
Yeah, I think what's also interesting about it is that they definitely, I don't know, it's not a rushed movie. It takes its time to get there, but when the brutality comes, it just comes so in your face and this and that, and you're kind of just always, you're back on your heels a lot of the movie because you're just like trying to understand the world, yes, but you're just like, what the fuck just happened here? You know, I felt that consistently through the movie, actually. Which actually, what's obviously what makes it great and stuff like that. I mean, if you look at Terrifier, it definitely has a lot of those. Sorry, Terrified. Yeah, Terrified. Yeah. It definitely has a lot of those elements. I mean, hell, I would love to see. Here's the thing: I would love to see what he would do with a studio film. Although any studio would never let him make this kind of film,
right?
Unfortunately, so I think he just should stick to doing bigger budget versions of these kinds of films, so we can still keep on getting the good stuff rather than whatever. You know, the studio fight version of this would be.
Like my favorite moment is the dog attack. But when you say shock, we don't even need it on that level. Like that moment for me is the seconds before it when I'm sitting there going, please don't do it. Please don't do it. Even though I know it's coming. And, you know, like that's the fact that I read spoilers and this movie scared the fuck out of me says more than I can possibly say about it. But it's smaller things than that. It's seeing the rotten for the first time. It's seeing the way his underwear clings to him and has grown to him. It's the just like you can smell that fucking scene somehow, you know?
Yep.
Like, oh my God. And it's that attention to detail that hits. You don't know what's going on if you went in blind. You're seeing this thing for the first time, but then it's hitting every fucking fear that we have about getting old and being in a nursing home, lying in a similar, although not on that level, condition. You know, it's all these fucking things and it hits you in like a second and a half. And holy fucking shit. So you have that kind of shock. You have the dog attack shocks. You have, even when you know that the car is going to slam into the wife, you know, like, it's still like, oh shit, they did it, you know, like,
and the little girl's dancing.
So good.
That's the stuff. There are these little flares in each of those, like the dog. The whole idea, they do that wonderful Alfred Hitchcock thing with the dog, right? Instead of a bomb underneath the table, the little girl is dancing around, putting her finger on the top of the dog's head. So you understand this is a trusted animal, and you're like, and I'm going, maybe they're going to throw me a curve and it's going to go after the mom, right? I thought maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe the kid's possessed. But as soon as the dog sniffs the clothing outside, I'm like, oh, fuck. They said something about animals being, you know, screwed with by this thing. So that's when the time bomb starts. And this movie has a bunch of timers in it. They don't pay off for a long period of time. The idea of the older boy not being able to speak, you know, that whole thing has a payoff. But that timer, as soon as certain things are mentioned, you just know that's going to come back. And he cleverly, you know, gives you, you know, somebody throwing brains out of a kid's head like it's they're weeding, they're throwing grass seed.
It's like popcorn out of a container. Like that's what it reminded me of. Just like Johnny Appleseeding this fucking kid's brains like all over the town.
Yeah.
Or whatever, the road.
So I'm like sitting there going, okay, fuck that. And then so I forget about a timer. And then when the timer goes off, I'm like, oh shit, sorry, I was too busy thinking about the fucking brains. You know, and so, you know, it's really cleverly done.
Well, I went and read an interview, and I think it was from like Fantastic Fest or something. And he was talking about the problems with shooting with the kids in I guess, I think they shot in Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. But they said they'd done something in America. I don't know what, but, or it was a co-production with America. Maybe that's what it was. But they were saying that they couldn't put any artificial blood on any of the kids, like as like something as a rule the government has with like shooting with kid actors or whatever. So I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, every one of those had to be like dummies if they couldn't put like blood on the stuff, or I mean practical effects, of course. But yeah, I thought that was a real like horrible limitation and very probably tough to shoot around. But he said that, and then he said what was the other thing I read? He said something about he had an original dog for the part or whatever, and that dog was a terrible actor. He's like, I fucking hate dog actors. That's okay. And so he had to get, and they were trying to get another dog, but they didn't want it to be so obvious. Like if you got a German Shepherd, yeah, it screams it's going to kill the kid or whatever. So they chose that specific dog because it was a little bit not a Rottweiler, not a German Shepherd, not a typical horror dog, let's say. So I thought that was yeah. I mean, so they kind of did a good job with that too as well.
That's great.
You were mentioning little things, little moments, little beats, and I mentioned the mother being afraid, coming downstairs and being afraid, and how potent that was. But it was also the idea of how well they do evil in this. And what do I know of evil, right? But at the same point, when I see something that really hits, like I will give Blatty as much as I can, occasionally say rude things about The Exorcist because they don't want to mention that it's a horror movie. Well, fuck you. The whole idea that a Jesuit probably made one of the best ideas of the sadism and the glee of something evil in Exorcist 3. Just the whole casualness of evil. And this movie has that casualness. And it's in the one scene where the son who cannot speak, who has autism, comes into the grandmother and says, I'm cold. Will you make me some soup? And what I think is, I don't think it's confused. I think it's fucking with her. I think it's doing that just to scare her. Like, I'm no longer that person. And he hugs her. And that whole thing is just so... There are only a few moments I can think of in horror movies or in film that really affect me, where you go, I can feel the terror of, you're dead. You're dead, and this person is fucking playing with you. This thing is playing with you. And I love it because you've seen all this incredibly grotesque stuff that's happened, really some over-the-top stuff. And then you have this one little moment, and it's just so... we mentioned, Alok mentioned Dark and the Wicked, and there's a moment in that film where I go, God damn, that's whoever. I hope they're in therapy after writing that, because that one had to hurt to write.
Well, I mean, look, and the payoff for that, right, where he's torturing the grandmother, going back to that scene, or torturing the grandmother, and she's clearly told everybody, like, well, this is what it does to people who have autism. The brain doesn't work right. So now she can see it's all working right now. So he's fully like whatever else. And then the long burn of it all to come back to the fucking manzana ice cream and him just like spitting everything out. It's just like, it's
spitting out abuela.
It's the chef's kiss. It really is.
Yeah.
Like it does.
Yeah. And it's doing it not because it's actually choking or anything. It's the most horrible fucking thing you could do to that son right there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst thing that you could possibly do to Pedro. My son ate my mom. It's probably the worst thing. Yeah. And it
Thanks
does
for
it with,
titling my next book. Thank you.
It's like, and he does it with flair, right? Well, wait a second. It's like the rags coming out of the magician's mouth. Like unbelievable and so evil.
I mean, and just that last scene with Pedro outside, like, like every hero at the end has lost their mind, and he has certainly lost so many things this day, like in the last 24 hours, really. Like, it's just the worst. And then fucking, I think it's Jimmy is the brother, right? He's like sitting in the corner, like, like also, it's just the worst way to leave something, right? Like, it's just, it just destroys you. It destroys you. Anyway.
Fantastic.
There's no hope, right? There's literally no hope in that. And it's Dark and the Wicked is also like that. A shout out for that film for anybody who hasn't seen it, because that really is really good.
Indeed.
Yep.
Brian Bertino, right?
Yeah. It's Brian Bertino. And
I love his work.
Yeah. Gosh, why am I forgetting the other guy going over? Milan Chakrabarti is the producer of it. Is Indian guy such as myself. He calls himself the Hollywood Hindu, and he did like what was it, Assassination Nation as well. He's done my friend Dahmer. He's done a lot of cool stuff, and that movie was like not done for very much money. The Dark One. He told me some stories about it. He said that they got Ryan Bertino had a farm, and they shot it. That's his farm. They shot it. They shot it on the farm, so it saved them a little bit of money in that regard. But yeah, I think they're doing a sequel for it. I think.
Wow.
Or a prequel, or a prequel. I forget.
Oh, I hope they
Something
leave it
like that.
alone. I'm kind of fuss budgety about that kind of thing. It's so rare that it actually works, especially when it's something really good. It's like, this is the perfect hamburger. Well, let's just give you another patty and let's put a little bit of blue cheese on it. It's like, no,
we money grubbing indie producers got to make some money, son. Like we're not, we got mouths to feed. We made money. If one thing actually rose above the noise to actually make some money, but you gotta maybe do another one, but just do it right.
Right.
Well, look, I'm gonna throw this out here. If you ever need to shoot a film on a farm, I have some land in Virginia that I have a controlling interest in. So there would be no fee.
That sounds like a horror movie right there.
All right, yeah.
Oh, just saying. Just let me know.
I will certainly let you know.
How do you feel about eating human flesh? Other than that,
I mean,
Well, and I bring that up for a couple of reasons. Because one, James, he smiled at when talked about farmland and free, and because I sent him pictures of some things that had taken place on the land. But I also said because so much of this film reminded me of what my mother's side of the family was going through at the same time period with respect to COVID and with respect to one of my cousins who is was developmentally disabled. He ended up dying from COVID, but the entire family got it. Was able to get COVID because of one person was careless. And I just saw the same way as far as like this trying to figure out your family situation, trying to figure out like, okay, if I die, like what you see with Pedro dealing with his mom and everybody else who's gone now, if I die, who's going to take care of X? If I die, what is going to happen with this stuff? So even beyond just the horror of all his virtually the vast majority of his family is gone to this thing. So the fear isn't it's going to happen to me. The fear is, what other shit am I going to see or deal with when this thing comes for me?
Yeah.
Like, what is it punishing me? All those soul searching questions, like, am I being punished? Did I do something? Was I such a horrible husband and father that this is what the rotten, the evil that we can't call it, can't call the evil by its name. But is that what this is doing? It knows how to get me to a position to where I'm weak enough, because the evil itself liked building up that fear in people to become stronger, or just to toy with them, or just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Well, every step of the way, this guy knows most of the rules, right? And he knows the rules, but yet he manages to fuck up somehow, some way. Like he goes to his wife's house. Like the first time his wife ever sees him, he's naked. He's naked and sitting downstairs, and she's just like, "What the fuck, dude?" And he's like, "Are you drunk out of your mind coming here and doing this?" And he gets distracted trying to do whatever with her. And meanwhile, the clothes are still left outside, not burned or whatever it is. And then the dog smells it, and then he fucked up there. Then at the end, when he has a chance to use the device to kill the rotten, his emotions get the best of him, and he just starts, instead of using it the right way, or just starts beating the shit out of the thing with the thing, not doing it the right way once again. And what happens next?
There's just tons of that. The one that drives me crazy, that makes me go, and I know that they're doing it on purpose because Damien Rugna's not an idiot, is when they're driving in the two trucks. And he's with the specialist, the ex-girlfriend and everything. And she's like, turn off your lights. And he goes, smugly turns on the lights. The truck in front of him has the lights off, but he's like, fuck you. And he doesn't even, he can follow their brake lights, right? and still be on there. But instead, he's like, go fuck yourself. Electricity is what we're all about. And it's like this consistent thing of like continuing to fuck up. I think what's cool, what you said, Don, really hit home. The idea of surviving is the torture, right? When you're in a situation where something is just torturing you, it's like, just kill me. No, we've got so many pleasures to show you still. And there's that whole moment where he's sitting there crying and the rotten touches his head and marks him.
Yeah.
And just the idea that he's marked now, that's like, what was the movie, the Ritual? Bruckman just did, where it's marking cowards. It takes cowards into the woods. And so it's like this whole thing of, you have now, we're branding you. Everyone's going to know that you helped make this fucking shit happen. I'm going to keep you alive. Everybody's going to see the scarlet letter on you. You're the one.
It's also keeping him alive to like let him live with what's happened.
Yeah.
Like it's more, he's going to now have to like
live with this motherfucker. Yeah. Live with this.
Killed indirectly or directly, killed most of his children.
Yeah. Because you weren't supposed to move that guy.
And his ex-wife. And the ex-wife's husband. Like, he's just bad. He's bad news for everybody.
Yeah. And the whole thing, we haven't even talked about the idea of the sheep, right? The idea where the wife of the landowner, Ruiz, she comes in, she's pregnant. And we have this little eerie thing in the beginning where he's saying, let's move this beast out of here, this rotten, and he's ready to shoot him, and everybody said, don't shoot him, it'll kill us. And he goes, oh yes, please shoot me. By the way, when I'm out of here, I'm going to go right to your wife's belly, and I'm going to get into that entity that's in her, and I'm going to possess that. And he tells him that right there. And then there's this whole thing of the sheep, all the sheep running, and then there's the one, and the wife is saying, don't shoot it, don't shoot it. And it walks up to him and puts its head on the barrel.
That was so effective.
Yeah.
So one of the other parts of that interview that I was reading, it said that they were, because it was an actual like goat farm, and there's no way to like train a goat. So he said like for hours the goats would be running away from them, and they try to like herd the goats back to like get this shot, but they kept on fucking running away. It was driving him fucking insane. So then they go to kill the goat, right? And they ask him, well, what's going to happen to this goat? And they're like, oh, actually, the owner is like, we're going to actually barbecue this goat next week. And they're like, oh no, like that goat was a good performer. So then like a year later, he got pictures of that goat, and they had not let that goat die because now the goat's famous. And the goat had babies. So like that cursed goat is going to live on.
Well, I was going to say those goat babies are probably the rotten now.
I mean, if the legend is to be believed, right? Yeah.
But okay, that goes back to the shocks we were talking about. Like, you get 3 great shocks in a row. You get this fucking goat pushing its head against the gun, which is just beautiful. And then he does it, and you know they're all fucked. But then you just get that axe in the head out of nowhere, and you're like, holy fuck. And then when she turns it on herself, I can't be the only one who was like, this is the worst way to commit suicide. Grab the fucking gun. Like, holy shit. And then she just starts whacking herself in the face over and over, leading to, as you guys already talked about, where she's no longer there. But like, that's just three fantastic shots in a row where you're like 20 minutes into the film at this point. You're like, what the fuck's coming next? Wow. I want to write something that good.
Wow. It's not easy. We can tell that because of how long it's taken for us to get to this movie, right? I will say that I really thought that Talk to Me was going to be the best of the year. It was very M.R. Jamesian. I liked its style, and I loved the end. I thought the end was really, really great. And then I saw this, and I was like going, wow, no, the 2 really, really strong independent horror films that use a style that's overused, right? There's the idea of the ghost story and the possession story are so overused, and they both found a way to make them more about people. What I love that we haven't really talked too much about is that there's not huge amounts of characterization, but the characterization that we get is almost like the characterization that you would have in a documentary. So people come in and tell you a little bit about that person by the way that they interact with them. So we know about Ruiz before we meet Ruiz. We find out more about Pedro when we see the wife, when we see the new husband. And there's this thing with the brother, Jimmy, that I thought was just a wonderful flair, where he could just be this second banana guy. And all of a sudden he says something like, I'm always watching. I listen. And so people tell me things. So he ends up coming up with some of the ideas that are kind of important to maybe get us through all this. I thought it was just really great how we learn these characters. Like, he's a ladies' man. You can almost infer, like when he's saying, is that Ruiz's kid? Yeah, who knows? Because Jimmy has a problem with him, right?
He was saying they were saying he's an old ladies' man. Like, he likes the older ladies.
Yeah, he likes the old ladies. Yeah. Yeah. So, it was just really interesting that somebody who could just be there to find one prop or something like that. Why is his brother there? And they gave him flesh. There was actually stuff for him to be able to do. And I think that helps when you're building up these relationships that feel very real when people start getting taken away. The mom feels comedic, but at the same point, somewhat real, because she brings up certain concerns. She's not just daffy. She's doing what moms would do, right? I think you're in trouble. And yet I'm not going to say, I'm just going to ask some questions. So does she know that you have the kids? What is it, a holiday? Where's this car coming from?
Shouldn't they be in school?
Yeah. Shouldn't they be in school? All of that stuff is being said. And I thought that the way that they did that was so great because it wasn't exposition. It was really this conversational stuff. And I think that's really hard to do. And it really sells. It's the old Stephen King thing, right? Your supernatural thing should be the only thing that's unrealistic. Everything else should be realistic. And then it really sells when the toaster suddenly flies and hits you in the head. Something like that happens. And here, we don't, until that fucking hatchet, who knows? Who knows what the fuck this movie's going to do? But that hatchet is really the moment.
Well, when you talk about the realism, right? Especially through the dialogue, through the conversations, you have that moment again with the abuela where they're saying, I think they need to get money for gas or something, and she's like, "You told me I didn't need, all my stuff was back there. Like, what's going on here?" And that also gives you another way to see how there are going to be barriers and obstacles in the road that they're going to be traveling, both literal and figurative. So by having that, whether we're talking about the interaction between him and abuela, the grandmother, the kids, these are the ways that any last one of us, despite cultural differences, we would react to that situation. I'm sure all of you probably saw the video of the Southwest flight. I guess it was from Atlanta to New Orleans, or New Orleans to Atlanta, where somebody threw something under a seat and then jumped out of the plane. And what was terrifying to me was the realism of someone says, "This happened. I'm getting off the plane. We need to get off the plane." And it's a 3-minute video of people looking around. What happened? Why do we need to get off the plane? In this situation, if you told someone, "Hey, there's a rotten in this town, don't get rid of him. Don't move him. You can't kill him because we need a specialist, but you can't take him." And the ignorance of the individuals that are taking this action, which is, we're going to take him somewhere. And then you end up creating a much bigger problem. Mm-hmm. You see how that starts to play out, whether it's people being confused on the airplane, whether it's the grandmother saying, like, "Well, shit, I don't have anything with me. You told me, it was so abrupt. I don't know." And if this is a real world situation, I shouldn't say if it's a real world situation. If it is based off of a real world situation, they did a great job in applying what took place in the real world into horror, fantasy, fiction. It's if they don't get nominated or win something, like, it's gonna be a problem.
I think it's definitely gonna at least cement a career. I think
yes.
Terrified was one, but having both of those back to back hitting like that, I think Rugna is going to be going for a while. And I hope he can keep this record going. One of the things I think is really cool is that we talk about realness. And there were a couple times when I was so horrified that I laughed. And that's that really interesting thing that you don't necessarily get all the time. That dog getting that kid and the slow reveal of looking under the table. Like they don't just show the kid getting around. Yeah. He's slowly going under the table. Everything about that timing is so great. And, I'm not going to say that horror and comedy are married together, but the element of surprise and timing are so important. And
you're just so shocked. You're just so shocked that you have to react. And your reaction, if it's laughter, is because you're so uncomfortable with a fucking situation.
Absolutely.
You have no choice but to be like, damn, they went there. It's like,
laughing in an audience, with an audience at this kid getting ragdolled around is just unbelievable. And that happens
now.
Yeah. I laugh when they almost hit the kid and they go back and the Rotten's not in the back of the car. Like I just saw the body, like Pee-wee's Big Adventure when he falls off the motorcycle. I'm just seeing this.
I noticed it today. They missed the kid, right? That's the reason the whole thing. And the kid's like, fuck you. They're like, fuck you, go to class. Like this kid's going to fuck with them later, right? It's like just the worst. But no, I was going to say, did you guys see Satanic Hispanics yet?
No, I haven't.
Because he does the first story.
Oh, really?
He does the very first story in the thing, and it's actually it's Satanic Hispanics is sort of a mixed bag because there is a lot of weirdly comedic elements to it. Mm-hmm. But his story is a serious one, actually, and I think it's probably of the serious ones, it's like probably the best one. And other people like buddies with Eduardo Sanchez. He has a comedy one in there, which is really pretty good. And then there's one more guy, and this is the funniest one. The last one really is the funniest one. And there's like, I won't say anything about it. But I mean, definitely worth checking out because this is like, it's a 91%, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's certified fresh, if I'm not mistaken. This is so funny about this movie, though. Going back to this movie we're talking about, 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh. 98 reviews. One fucking guy gave it a bad review. And I can't say a bad thing about these
two. Why would you do that?
They're two gay fellows who have a YouTube show. And both of them couldn't have missed this movie more. But they're usually pretty good. I mean, they gave us a good review, so I can't like shit on them altogether. But I was just like, God damn, one fucking person stop this from being 100% out of 98 fucking reviews. Just, it's so sad to me. It's so sad to me. I guess you can't make everyone happy all the time. They said something like, this should have been a black comedy, but it wasn't. I was like, what?
I'd be so happy to get that one bad review because no one would believe, right? You always have to have the one or two outliers like on, so you didn't see the same movie. Great. You're going to sell a couple tickets for me by saying that. Yeah.
Well, it's just unfortunately, you couldn't pitch a perfect series with certain people, but
super rare.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been, but you look on Rotten Tomatoes right now, it's actually the number one film. Like they're actually doing it in a good order now, like in terms of like the top of the year.
Oh,
they're putting out all the movies that are certified fresh first, because there are like some 100% movies that are like, I got like 5 reviews. Like, fuck you, you're not number one. Like, right. So they're doing it in that order now, but it's number one right now. And the other movie that's right below it is Who's Sarah, the Bone Woman.
Oh yeah,
which I love that movie. I saw that at Beyond Fest actually this last year. And I was just like, they had one of the scariest moments in horror cinema of the year period. And that young lady who directed, Michelle Garza, we met her at Fantasia, and she had done a short. And we were sitting like, partying with her and whatever else. And like 2 years later, she's like, best film in Tribeca, won award at Tribeca. She like won, I think, something in the Gotham Awards, like best new director and stuff like this. Nice. So like, I love it. That's awesome. I love that she did that. She's like all punk rock and is all tatted up and stuff, and she's awesome. Really, really sweet lady.
Well, we need that new blood. We need the Ragnars of the world and stuff to come out here and show us what the new horror is going to be. And this is wonderful because it feels This is one of those movies I don't know whatever a regular horror fan is or a casual horror fan would think of it. But I can tell you that the really gross, hardcore, old, grumpy guys, this is like a bomb. This is like such a great feeling for a horrible film, right? That's unrelenting and extremely violent and depressing and dark. It actually made me feel great. I left the theater. I was like going, I just saw something that I search all these fucking channels for day in, day out to find the thing that's going to shock me and surprise me and elate me. And it did it. So I'm hoping for more of this.
I mean, I wonder, like, I think about this all the time because like I said, I used to come from this background of testing movies, like, a lot of studio films and stuff, right? So I would see those conversations going on in the back, like we'd present numbers to them and, the focus groups going on and whatever else. But meanwhile, in the back, they're just like, that fucking scene needs to go. It's no good. And I'm like, that's the best scene of the movie, right? They actually asked us, like, we were friends with Jason Blum when he used to work at Miramax. And so they had bought, like, I think DreamWorks, which is part of Paramount at the time, had bought that Paranormal Activity movie out of, I think it was Slamdance. And so they brought us in to watch the movie. And they're like, we're thinking about doing a shot-for-shot remake of this film. So we want Matthew McConaughey and Ashley Judd. And I was like, this is all wrong. Like, the whole thing about this movie is you don't know that it's real or it's not. Okay.
Right.
The only thing that sucks about it is the ending, because the ending did suck, actually. And we tested it. And I was betting, like, the head of market research for DreamWorks, like, we were buddies. I was like, look, it's going to score this much. It could score better with the test screening. She's like, oh, it'll never score that at all. And I'm like, I bet you a steak dinner at Masters it will. And I was right. And the ending sucked. And so they went back and we shot the ending. And Spielberg supposedly, like, helped him a little bit.
Yeah.
And told him, like, throw the guy at the camera. And I remember we tested two different endings. Well, one, the cops come in, they shoot them or something. And the real one was that she just cuts her own throat and it's such a letdown or whatever. But then they did that one and that scored like 10 points higher. And I was like, all right, now we got an ending here. Like, this is going to work. But this is the kind of shit the studios do, right? This is where their mind is. Like, I mean, so, I can't, I was trying to think about it. And the only, I think, like, mini major studio that would probably let this guy just be himself is either A24, maybe, or maybe like a Neon.
Right.
Those are the two I feel would let them kind of be himself at a bigger budget. But it's going to be, I don't know. If he goes to a studio, it's like do you guys see the movie The Vigil?
Yeah.
Which I thought was great. Really well done. Yeah. But then that guy went to do fucking Firestarter. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, you go from this nice little indie to just probably the worst movie of the year. It's like, that's what happens though with the studios.
Ben Wheatley did the Meg 2 or whatever the hell it is. I'm like, Ben Wheatley?
Well, I'll say this. That movie, Meg 2, it's a piece of shit except for the last 30 minutes. Oh, the best. It's everything you want. Everything you want in the movie. The rest of the movie, I just can't, I can't get through it. But I took my 5-year-old, don't judge me, but she loves these kinds of things and she knows it's not real. And she was laughing so hard, having the best time that last 30 minutes. And like, we literally watched it again on HBO Max, but we just watched the last 30 minutes because we're just like, not watching the rest of this.
Our kids would get along.
She knows it's not real. I showed her all the Jurassic Park stuff and how it was made and everything, so she knows it's not real. I'm not showing her like horror movies or whatever. She like really badly wanted to see that Freddy, Five Nights at Freddy, or like Megan, and I'm like, I'm not letting her see that again. You don't need to see this yet. That's a bit much. So yeah,
maybe when you're 6, kid. Maybe when you're 6.
Let's go a little longer. Although, I mean, to be fair, I didn't really think Freddy got fingered. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, I remember Freddy got fingered.
I think I like Freddy got fingered more than I like Five Nights at Freddy's. Let me just say that. I know it's a video game and it's a big following and shit. I can't recall being more bored and then seeing how much. Now that movie has made more than any other Blumhouse horror movie in the history of Blumhouse. Did you know that?
Oh my god!
As of today. And it's the biggest head scratcher for me. But then people keep on telling me, oh, the video game. Okay, fine. But that movie just was not scary at all to me. I was bored. I think I knew everything from the trailer. Like I couldn't believe that it made this money. But anyway, we're getting off on a tangent here, I'm sure.
Really fast. I just want to say, Scott, I love that you brought up Ben Wheatley because we just did Kill List last week. So
I love Kill List. Yeah.
I was late to the Kill List game, actually. I just saw that movie in the last year, actually, on Shudder.
I just saw it last month. So there you go.
You know, it was part of my October movies, actually.
Oh, nice.
That's what it was. And I was just like, shit, this is amazing. This is horrifying. This is so
yeah.
Hey, Meg too.
Oh man. Yeah, Five Nights we did an episode on as well. And as I said on there, Willy's Wonderland is so far superior to me. I could watch that movie over and over again. But I do think that it's hitting, Scott, you said a little bit ago, like we need young blood coming in to tell us what horror is going to be. And while I don't think that it's going to be Five Nights, I think that that's the audience that needs that doorway to build the horror that we're going to get. And Mr. Creepypasta was our guest on Five Nights, and he's a big video game guy. So I expected him to be all over it. And he kind of said the same thing, just it wasn't for us. Like Willy's Wonderland is for us and Five Nights is for them. And I don't know. I'm so fascinated by how these doorways to horror work and how some kid is going to watch that. And then they're going to make some shit that blows my mind when I'm 70, or whatever. And then they're going to be like, it's all thanks to Five Nights. And I'm going to be like, damn you.
Let's
I'll make sure my daughter signs the award.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on Skinamarink.
Skinamarink, man. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's I give lectures at universities every so often about horror and stuff. And you ask questions. Nobody wants to talk to you. You say, okay, we're done. Thank you, everybody. You go to put your shit away. And there's a line of kids that want to talk to you. Right. Yeah. And so I'm talking to them and I just get them in a circle. And we start talking about movies. I said, I watched this movie, Skinamarink, and they were all engaged. And I think part of it is it's a pandemic movie. I don't think we're going to understand how much the pandemic has fucked with people of a certain age until a long time from now. But I also think that it has to do with what you were talking about with Mr. Creepypasta, video games, that there is this idea of what a narrative needs to be that is somewhat outdated. And that's what we are used to, the 3 acts. And I don't think that's necessary for a certain group of kids. And I don't think Skinamarink's going to be the thing, but Skinamarink is a jumping off point for, I saw a couple other movies that are of that same ilk, where it's not quite found footage. It's just a strange thing. And people are terrified by the inability to know, right? This whole idea of not knowing what's going on. The idea of the back rooms where suddenly you're stuck in the video game frame and you're not in the game anymore and you can't get out. Goes back to that House of the Blue Leaves book. All of these things were not for me because I'm used to looking at narrative in a certain way. And somehow in a couple generations of video games and things like that, you can just have someone wake up on the floor of a hotel room and get up and start walking around and wait for a long period of time, not knowing where they're going. And there's a sense of thrall that I don't have. So I'm still trying to figure out how to get into that mindset. But I've had people write me because I made a joke about Skinamarink and they're like, I thought you were supposed to be this open-minded horror guy. What the actual fuck, man? That movie. And I'm like, everybody that's saying this is under 30. I'm like, I'm missing something. Something is happening.
You know what? I'll tell you what you're missing. Okay, first off, you're not wrong. It's a piece of shit. Like I hated that movie so much I want to kill myself. I couldn't even. It's the best sleep aid I've ever had in my life. I tried to watch it 4 fucking times. I fell asleep all 4 fucking times. Right, and I finally got through it. I swear to God, I was losing my mind. Like this is what I tried to get through. Like it was just awful. The reason it's popular is it got leaked online early. Right, they had like unfortunately, this is every producer's nightmare, but a cut of it was like online. And then people started taking that cut and taking things and putting it on TikTok. Just this kind of creepy moments, whatever else. That thing has so many views on TikTok. It's insane. So everyone was like, well, look, you saw that little clip was really creepy, whatever else. Now come see the movie in the theater. Fucking thing made like $3 million in the goddamn theater. Mm-hmm. And there were some people who wanted their money back. So I talked to theater managers about it and stuff. And they're like, oh my God, I've never we were just like, how can we get this movie to leave? But like enough people stayed and they made money off it, right? Yeah. So Yeah, I think there is a type of movie, and that marketing campaign weirdly was not of their choosing, and it just happened to work. And I think that was the magic, that was the lightning in the bottle for that. Now, I don't know if that guy is trying to get another fucking film. If whoever gives that person some money is a moron. Like, I would just say this. That's one thing. The other movie is similar to it. Is Let's All Go to the World's Fair.
Oh yeah.
You ever see this? Oh my God, I wanted to fucking ice pick on my eyeballs. Like, it's the slowest piece of shit and nothing happens in it, right? Okay, the director is a trans dude. It got into Sundance, who knows why, but I think kind of partially because of that. HBO picked it up, which is insane to me that this is picked up by HBO, but fine. I don't know who's watching this film. And I know that you look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores, has like 90-something% certified fresh, and then like 20-30% for the audience review. That kind of inequity tells you pretty much everything you got to know. Like, it's just whatever it is. I don't know if it's just too artsy for me to understand, but I can tell you this, I don't think it is.
I have a quick question for you, Alok. If you were in hell, are you watching Skinamarink, Let's All Go to the World's Fair, Five Nights, or Wish?
Oh God, I watched Wish. Yes, look, Wish and Five Nights at Freddy's are nowhere near as bad as the Sophie's Choice that is Skinamarink and goddamn Let's All Go to the World's Fair.
I couldn't resist.
But gun to head, I'm gonna go Skinamarink is the movie that would be playing on repeat in hell for me personally. I
had to fuck with you. So
I mean, you're not. You got me exactly where you wanted me. It's very skilled. That you brought it out just that way. But you got it. Skinamarink is the movie that would be on nonstop in hell for me, 100%. I'm not even thinking about it. So,
who's editing this poor fucker?
Nobody.
Yeah,
that's the joy.
Sorry, guys.
Oh no.
We've gone off on different tangents here.
What do we have left on the movie? Does anybody have anything left in their notes on the actual?
We pretty much talked about all the issues. I mean, in order, out of order, mixed match.
There's an order.
How creepy children are.
Yeah, I really wish they had been able to hold this in theaters longer. And especially kind of around the world. I think that, Shudder's not in every country, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I really hope that this gets into theaters, like, even if it's a slow rollout or whatever. But I hope audiences get to see this in a theater with other people and just have the collective shock and just I swear the word of mouth on this movie. Like, when we used to test movies, right? They'd score the movie excellent, very good, fair, poor, right? And then the next question that really mattered to them, do you definitely recommend it, right? If you had a high definitely recommend score, it's great because that score indicates that you will tell your friend about it, and you telling your friend about it is 10 times better than any trailer that we can have, paid to be cut or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I swear to God, this would have like a 90-something% in not only the top two boxes, excellent and very good, but then that score would also be so high that people would do theater business. It would do theater business, and it could probably make like $3 or $4 million in the theaters, before it then comes on whatever streaming platform is in that country that it can go on, because Shudder's not there. So.
I would literally have gone back to the theater to see this a couple times solely to watch everyone's reactions when shit was coming. Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite things. I actually did it with Five Nights. I sat through Five Nights twice solely because I watched it on TV the first time, and then I wanted to see all these diehard teen fans react and watch them. And I'll admit, it was a better movie because of who I was with. I still don't ever want to see it again. But to be able to do that with something like this, where you could watch people have that visceral, holy fucking shit moment, would just, that'd be glorious. One day I'm going to rent out a theater and show this to my unsuspecting friends.
You should have a festival, a fuck you festival. You don't get to see, you don't know what you're coming to see, but you're just going to see it, and you have to sit there and watch it.
This is the best setup ever, Scott.
Did you?
Yeah, Scott. What did you do over Thanksgiving?
I know. I was just like going, this is just what I did. I had 5 B movies, like they're the kind that you would never want to watch alone. And I didn't let my friends know. They came over and they had to sit and watch them, and it was hilarious because none of them were boring. They were howlingly insane. They were like really bad, like Blood Freak from 1972, and what was a Frostbiter, the Wendigo movie. Oh my God, I've not seen that.
Frostbiter was my favorite out of the five. Yeah,
it's just fucking hilarious. But anyway, yeah, it's a great idea. I'm all for that. And I do think that this is a movie that, we're just talking about, it's funny. It depends on what side of the coin you're on, right? We're just talking about Skinamarink going, you know what did it? It was hype. It was people talking about, they saw this thing. And that's exactly what I would want for this movie, right? When Evil Lurks. And the reason that it makes it so good is that it feels like it's something special that got through the censors, that got through whatever importing thing that needed to happen. You saw something you really maybe shouldn't have seen, or it was unbeknownst. The gatekeepers didn't know. Somehow it got through, and you're able to tell people about that. And this is what I think horror fans, longtime horror fans, live for, is giving each other references, giving each other something to watch. We all want to be surprised one more time.
Right.
We wish we could watch these great movies that we love for the first time again, which is why we go to the theater, to watch other people's expressions. There's something really revitalizing about it. So I'm super excited to see what Damien Rugna is going to do next.
Nice.
I agree. It's going to be, look, I feel like he's got at least 15 to $20 million of goodwill built up from this film, hopefully. And they'll just let him do something really crazy. Because, he writes and directs all these, too. He's not I think he's doing all the stories as well. So,
Oh, that's great.
They call him, I think, in Argentina, horror. And the horror and then AR at the end of it, because he's the fucking man in horror in Argentina.
That's
right?
fucking great. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
If he gets a big budget, who knows? We might end up with something like John Carpenter's The Thing, where he does one movie where they just give him everything because of his reputation, and they're like, we need to kill you now. We hate this movie. And then 20 years later, it's a masterpiece, right?
Well, I think that he has enough power with this movie to negotiate a final cut. So if he gets that, then, whatever. Now, the fuck you to that, the modern day fuck you to that is like, oh, well, we told you we were going to be theatrical, but you're going to be on fucking Peacock now.
Right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
So, yeah. I can't believe that Five Nights at Freddy's made more money than goddamn Get Out. Right? Of any of the Blumhouse movies. This is insane to me. This,
that is insane. I can't believe that.
Sinister? Come on, Sinister? More than Sinister? Fuck you.
I love Sinister.
I love Sinister too. Did you? I don't know if you ever had it, but the original ending on Sinister, do they have anything like that on the Blu-ray?
Oh, I don't know.
I can tell you what it is actually.
Oh, tell us.
So Ethan Hawke, this whatever Bogal character comes out, and it has this green kind of glow to it or something, and it ends up biting Ethan Hawke on the head. And then there's all this green blood coming out everywhere and all this good stuff, and then that's the end. And so they were just like, "Fuck this," and we're gonna go back and reshoot.
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
Everything was good to that point, and everyone was like, "This is the ending," and so they went back and wisely reshot it. So it all worked out.
Between that and Get Out and a couple others, we should just do a whole episode on how it could have ended and why we're glad it fucking didn't.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Jason Blum was always very apt to test things, and he was always very apt to listen to the scores and also change things where they needed to be changed. So he, changed some. What's the movie? We have some friends. They live up in Sacramento. They did The Gallows. Remember that one?
Oh yes, I remember The Gallows.
Yeah. So they had a completely different ending for that. He was just like, let's spend another $30,000. They shot the thing for 150 to 200,000, something like this. And so he was willing to put in another 30 or 40 or 50 to just reshoot the ending. And the reshot ending works so much better than the original ending. I can just say that. So he's actually willing to go back and do some reshoots to listen to the audience and stuff. So I always thought that was really great about him.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else on this film, we'll go to movie recs. What else should people watch if they loved this movie? Whoever wants to go first, go for it. Except Don. Don has to wait for last.
Well, I'm just thinking. You go first. You go first.
I was just going to say, I mean, we've kind of talked about ones that I think people, Dark and the Wicked should most certainly. In fact, I would say pretty much a lot of people hate on The Strangers, the first one, but I think Bertino really did a great job in that. If you're looking for an exercise in suspense, you may not like the end, but the exercise and suspense of that movie is really, really great. And the feel of this movie, you'll certainly have in The Dark and the Wicked. I think he is also someone that I think is an up and coming. I'm waiting to see him hit that home run. He's hitting really good stuff. And I would say if you want something that's not quite of this mood, I will say The Talk to Me is really, really good. I was impressed by how much they did with so little. And it's really a movie that if you want to see how actors can save your movie, watch that, because really it's contact lenses, black contact lenses and a ceramic hand, right? And everything else comes out of how well those actors make that universe work. So if you're really into that kind of thing, that M.R. Jamesian end it made me, chef's kiss. That to me was a chef's kiss. I saw it coming, but the way that they did it was just so beautiful.
Speaking of strangers, they're letting Rennie Harlan direct a trilogy, supposedly.
Oh boy.
Rennie Harlan, who threw a chair at me one time because he was so mad about his test scores. Not even lying about that. He threw a chair. I don't think he was kind of trying to throw it at me, but he threw it in my direction, and I stepped out of the way and hit the wall. And all the people from Millennium were just like, "Rennie, you cannot do this."
That's the best action. That's the best action he's directed in 20 years.
Well, it was this movie with Ed Harris and like Samuel Jackson, and it had to score a certain amount for them to release it in the States, and it didn't score that. And we did 2 test screenings in a week, right? And 1 week, and then the next week. First week it tested not so good, and so he's like, "I'm going to make changes. It's going to be better." Test it again, test even worse, and then he's losing his mind now that it's not going to be released in the States. Fast forward a couple months later, I'm seeing Iron Man in Paris. And I'm walking down like the thing, like the only place they have it in IMAX in English or whatever. And I look over to the side and I see his shitty movie. Like I'm like, this is the only place you could open it.
Oh my God.
It's going to be really hard on. All right. My movie recommendation. Segue into that. I just had it in my mind. Hold on. It's Speak No Evil. I think I'm saying it's Say No Evil or Speak No Evil. It's the one they're actually making a remake of it right now. I want to say it's on Shudder. It's a movie about a family. I think they're Dutch, and they meet another family on vacation, and then they invite them to come to their place, and it's just a slow fucking burn. I guess foreign language film. Children are involved. It is just so disturbing to me, especially the ending. I mean, it's a slow burn. It takes a while to get through, and it's uncomfortable as fuck. But like, if you like this kind of film, if you're open to like non-English speaking films, I think you're really going to enjoy this. Sony supposedly is doing an English version of this. And the same director, same writer director person. So let's see how it turns out. We were talking about Terrified. They were trying to do an American remake of that, and then COVID happened and supposedly killed it, which is why he did this movie when Evil Lurks. So I thought that was sort of an interesting thing. But that movie, I think it's when Evil. Sorry, not mixing everything up now.
You're right. It's Speak No Evil.
Say No Evil. Is it Speak or Say?
It's Speak. It's Speak. I had to go look it up because
don't see the Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder. What's it called? Is it Pryor with him or something?
Yeah, I think it was Richard Pryor.
I think Pryor's blind and
he's deaf, right?
He's deaf.
That's what it is. Yeah, it was terrible. You couldn't make that movie nowadays, I guess, huh?
Look, that one line of like, "You mean to tell me I'm not white?"
Well, that's that's my recommendation. That's my recommendation.
Awesome. All right. I always do a double feature. I'm going with my favorite movie from 2017, I think. Tigers Are Not Afraid.
Great.
Very different movies, but I think that they both explore things very differently than we do here in the States. And like I said, that was my favorite movie of that year. This is my favorite movie of this year. I highly want people to see each of them. I fucking love Tigers Are Not Afraid. So Don, you're up. 1,286 movies. Go.
All right. So the first movie is Five Nights at no, I'm just kidding.
And
Freddie got 5
nights. The
nights.
conversation.
Freddie got fingered at 5 nights.
Yeah.
All right. So the first one, the original Children of the Corn. I did not know there were like 8 sequels to the movie.
The original Children of the Corn?
Yeah. There are like 8 or 9 sequels. I know I saw it on one of the streaming platforms.
So this movie,
yes,
this one we just watched, made
Yes.
you go, I'm thinking of being behind the corn. Children of the Corn, the Linda Hamilton.
Would you let me finish, Scott? Would you let me
Okay.
finish? This is my list. Okay. I go
Fair enough.
I'm not saying double feature. These are just the movies that I'm like, I could see somebody enjoying this movie if they like this movie. Don't shit on my plate here, sir. All right.
I feel
Village
like
of the
I'm doing a
Damned.
panel at a con. This is great.
There. Now we're at a panel.
Scott hasn't
Don't draw any
dicks
penises.
yet, so
It Follows, Poltergeist,
Mm.
The Witch. I'll save
Wow.
the gems for the end. No One Will Save You, Banshee Chapter. We already mentioned John Carpenter's The Thing, Cult of Chucky. Yes, I said Cult of Chucky. But the ones that I would actually pair these with, the Brazilian film Bacurau,
oh yeah, love that.
Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, Orfanato, and because it's an Argentinian movie that deals with classism, deals with the government, deals with family and losing family, I would always recommend The Official Story, because it gets at the idea of you have one family member who wants to ignore the bad shit that was going on and how they benefit from it, and the other one wants to figure out what is going on, and it's a very heavy movie.
Yeah.
At certain points.
That's like a K-Tel record, man. Yeah, every fucking possible kind of horror movie and then a drama. It's like, okay.
You don't listen to our show much, do you, Scott?
Have we met?
That's every episode. Oh man. Nah, yeah, I guess that brings it back to the two of you. Scott, you want to tell people where they can catch your podcast and buy your books and all that good stuff? And then Alok, you can tell everybody where to catch 1BR these days and anything else you got going on.
Sure. You can find Hellbent for Horror wherever you listen to podcasts at. You can also go to hellbentforhorror.com, and I have a spot there with all of the podcasts, but also where you can get the book. And if you're not into getting it, you can get it anywhere, right? Amazon stuff. But if you don't want to feed the man, the ISBN number is on the site, so you can literally take that. And if you want to help out the small business owner who's a bookseller around you can just take that. They'll be more than happy to get the book for you. And there's another book in the wings called Defenders of the Faith, How Horror is Saving the World One Fan at a Time.
Nice.
So for me, the 1BR movie, which we're making a sequel to, so you should see the first one, is playing on all AVOD platforms and Shudder. You can watch it on Shudder if you don't want to watch any commercials. But I'll be honest with you, it helps us a lot more if you watch it with the commercials. we make a fat 22 cents a view. Like so, Tubi, Peacock, Amazon Freebie, Plex, Zumo, Pluto TV, Roku TV. Like I said, Shudder, but Shudder also has AMC Plus. So again, commercial free. Those two places actually come to think. You can buy it for, I don't know, very cheap now on any of the major platforms like iTunes, what is it called? Apple Plus, Google, whatever. If you just go to Just Watch, you can figure out all that information on justwatch.com. What else can I tell you? 1BR_film on Twitter. We're actually also on Facebook as well. Instagram, we're there, but we don't check that shit. So just go to Twitter. Go to Mr. Musk's whatever it is, and try to make it entertaining. We try to make it seem like it's a real cult on there. We're always trying to invite you to a dinner party or something, and telling you if only Sarah had come to the dinner party, it would have been easy. And look, we're just down the street from you, so why don't you just come? And we do different things for different holidays. Hey, we're having a barbecue. Come on over to Silla Del Mar, and whatever. But I was going to say, Scott,
crucifixion.
I mean, hey, listen, bring a hammer. We'll supply the nails. So it's all good. But Scott, it was very nice meeting you as well. And I would love to we would love to come on your show sometime for sure.
Right.
If that's something you would be interested in. Sure. Some cross pollination never hurts. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for me.
Sure. Inhale some spores.
I'm still campaigning. I would like to be in the second or the third one. I just want to be nailed to the wall, just my hand up, and then I'm just dead laying there. That's my whole role. That's what I want.
Look, you can be. Look, I always say this: if you want to be part of the cult, that we have a spot for you. I can't fly you out nor put you up, but I will put you in the movie and feed you lunch. Like that's what we will do.
Done.
Hey, I'm in. James, I'll take care of the flights. All right. Just don't let Don nail me. No human centipede type things going on here. Okay.
No. It'll be quite. It's
a very different movie.
It'll be very wholesome, as an R-rated film would be.
You know what's sad? I did that solely to watch his reaction, and then I realized I'm not going to post videos, and no one else will see it but the four of us. But it matters to you. It matters to you. All right.
Well, we will. You can take as much video. If you come to the set, you can take as much video as you like, as long as you do not post anything to the week we're coming out, to the week after we come out. Let's say, so people can at least watch the movie, not have it spoiled.
We're gonna talk about this. All right.
Seriously. We have a ton of people coming. I'm promising it's gonna be fun.
Excellent. All right. I suppose that'll wrap it up for this week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And learn your rules. You better learn your rules. If you don't, you'll be eaten in your sleep.
I did not expect that. We will see you next week here at thenecronomist.com.